What's going on, guys? It's a Bearded One back with another beer review. Tonight we're doing Dragon's Milk Oatmeal Reserve. The Oatmeal Cookie Reserve, I should say. This is a bourbon stout. For those of you that aren't familiar with Dragon's Milk, it is an entire, it's kind of become its own brand. Kind of like the Golden Monkey series for Victory. Dragon's Milk is kind of like that. Its base beer is a bourbon barrel aged stout, and then they just make different variations. This one is aged with cinnamon, raisins, brown sugar, oats, and vanilla extract. So it sounds like a very sweet, big bodied beer. Obviously it's a 11% alcohol by volume, so not a sessionable beer at all. Meant for you to always get a kick out of breweries when they say this beer is meant for you to sit by the fire on a cold winter's night and contemplate the mysteries of the world. Yeah, I think if you want to drink an 11% beer at a football game instead of a Miller Lite, you should be allowed to. Marketing is just funny that way. I have had the base beer, and that was several years ago, and I did not like it. And I would say 2018 is when I could start tolerating stouts. Let's get an aggressive pour on this thing. Pour that baby up. Alright. Decent head on this thing. A lighter, creamy brown. Creamy's not a color, but it just has like a creamed chocolate, like a very light mocha coffee type color, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. I guess I washed my glass off very well. That's a sin. It is a clean glass, though, I promise. Head retention, you know, it's kind of average. A lot of it's almost got like a Belgian-y head. It's just very frothy. Very well, tightly knit head there. All right. And once again, if it looks like a stout, if it smells like a stout, if it tastes like a stout, it's probably a stout. And I'm just going to have to tell you right now, it looks like a stout. It's black. I don't know what else to say about a stout. It's not a very diverse style when it comes to appearance. Much like a Belgian quad. A Belgian quad comes out in a very specific way, or an American light lager, or a wit beer. You know, those styles are very specific. They don't vary very much. I see sediment in here, so maybe that's part of one of the many adjuncts they put in here. I almost said cookie, but they did not put cookie in this. Or at least they say they didn't put cookie in it. Yeah, I was staring real hard trying to find bubbles. Bubbles are kind of hard to find in stouts. Not seeing a lot. I don't want to assume there's no carbonation in this beer with it being a stout. But just based on appearance alone, it's not a very volatile beer. It's got a delicate nose. Now this beer has been out since September 27th of 2019. It is now, it's the first or second full week of February as of the time of this recording. So this beer has possibly had some age on it, and it's also been sitting on a room temperature singles rack at my favorite beer store. So there's just no telling what age at room temperature has kind of done to this beer. I get coffee and roast for sure. I get barrel and whiskey, but it's in the foreground for sure. Brown sugar, cinnamon, raisins, oats, and vanilla. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm getting any of that. Let me shake up this beer, see if that. Yeah, it doesn't have very long legs. No lacing. I get like a sweeter thing going on, but with this nose being so delicate, I just can't sit here and name off that list. I don't know if this bottle fresh would have been that delicate, but you know, I don't have a fresh Oatmeal Reserve, so here we are. You know, it's just a delicate nose. That's all I can say about it. Just some roast, coffee, a little bit of barrel, a little bit of whiskey. Some sort of a sweetness in there, but it's just kind of mellowed out. This beer comes alive on the palate for sure. The coffee and roast is definitely the lead, but it's not pungent and even bitter at all. I can taste the 11%. It's right there in the middle of the sip and in on the swallow. There's no burning in the chest. There's a light feeling in my stomach with the alcohol, but it's not like shooting back, you know, like hard whiskey. It's definitely lighter than I would expect. But the alcohol is still there. It does taste boozy. The bourbon and that 11% alcohol presence really dominates most of it. But again, it's not a turnoff to me, being a whiskey guy anyways. Hold on. Yeah, I feel like the cinnamon and the brown. I feel like the vanilla is helping to mellow some of that coffee and almost sweeten up that coffee, and then I feel like the oats are in there helping the velvety, creamy, real smooth mouthfeel on this thing. Let me see if I can find the cinnamon and brown sugar in there. I feel like the raisin in there, that kind of that dark fruit that I'm very familiar with from all the Belgian quads I've had recently. It's really mixing in well with the whiskey and alcohol. I just feel like dark stone fruits play well. I feel like I got a hair in my mouth or something. Yeah, I feel like dark fruits play really well with higher ABV beers. For some reason, they just work well when a beer gets a little boozy, or maybe it's been barrel aged. So I feel like there's just so much in here. It's hard for me to articulate. You know, I can't really describe the order, the process of the sip real well, but I do feel like the vanilla in there again is sweetening up that coffee. And then the what am I trying to say here? the raisin, dark fruit flavor is playing accent to that whiskey and alcohol and the woods. I can't really pick up the wood so much. And the oat is helping that body, that mouthfeel. I feel like it thickens it up a little bit. It is leave it lighter on the body. One more time. I think the brown sugar and the cinnamon, I can't pick it apart. I almost don't even believe myself when I'm saying this, but I do believe the brown sugar and the cinnamon is kind of in the foreground of the beer, like on the back of the sip, if I'm really trying to look for it. But yeah, overall, even though there's a lot coming at me in this beer, it was hard for me to kind of get through everything. I had to take a few sips and think about what I'm drinking. It still was a good beer. As far as recommendations go, I did say if you want to drink this beer at a football game, you should be allowed to, and you should. If you want to drink this at a football game, you should be allowed to. But I would recommend, for maximum enjoyment, finding a quiet space, like this, or finding it on tap somewhere and just enjoying it over dinner, a quiet dinner, or reading a book and you're having this beer or something. That way you can concentrate on all the nuance in this beer that I'm not sure may or may not have been in this beer as when it was fresh. I don't know how, almost 5 months worth of aging has affected this beer, but it did help to make it a lot more smooth, and I don't feel like the coffee is so pungent after 5 or 6 months. I'm really not scared of an aged stout for sure. That's one style I just almost don't even care about the age date. Recommendations. There's enough alcohol and whiskey in here. I would say if you don't like tasting booze in your beer, or you don't like whiskey, I would stay away from this beer. I'm not sure. I mean, you can drink anything you want to if you're just getting into craft beer. Just personally, my recommendation, I feel like you're going to miss the point of this beer and miss a lot of you're going to miss the dance this beer is playing in your mouth. If you, you're not familiar with a lot of craft beer, and you don't really know what to expect or what to taste for or what to concentrate on and think about. So I would just find a more basic. While this is good and sweet, and I like to recommend sweeter beers to beginners, I just think beginners should find something a little less complicated. I think this beer is more for the stout connoisseur, or somebody who enjoys a barrel-aged beer that can drink coffee as well. Was a grade. It's smooth. It's velvety. I like that it's a little boozy. For 11%, I do appreciate that I can taste some alcohol. I would hate to drink an 11% beer and then alcohol ABV wise, it would be like a Miller Lite or something. That would be a travesty. If I'm pulling out an 11%er, I want to feel like, hey, I could be feeling kind of good. This will be a good nightcap at the end of a hard work day or something. So I appreciate that, just there's enough booziness there to let me know I'm drinking an 11% beer. But they hit it very well. I also like how complicated this beer. I do like that I have to concentrate on it. I just don't like that the brown sugar and the cinnamon just isn't quite there for me. Those are two cooking ingredients that I really enjoy in food, in desserts, and in oatmeal cookies. So that kind of knocks the beer down a peg for me. But overall, a really good beer. I feel like it has enough character to give it. Let me give it one more sip before I make a final decision. I give it a 3.75 out of a 9. Out of a 9. 3.75 out of a 5. Excuse me. If I was really nitpicking my scale, I would lean this more towards a 3.9 out of 5. And I think that's where the 9 came from. Just right outside, excellent. It's a very good beer, but it's just not quite excellent for me. Which is saying a lot, because I had the base beer years ago and hated it. They come in 4-packs, I believe. And I was kind of mad. I paid so much for it and hated it, but I powered through it. I drank my 4-pack. I did not waste any of it. Alright guys, that about does it for me. New Holland Brewing Dragon's Milk Reserve Oatmeal Cookie. 3.75 out of 5. Till next time guys. Cheers.